One of the tasks that you might need to do at school is create a podcast and then create a Google site or a site where you can actually host that podcast and share it with other people. So what I'm going to do here is make a series of videos that first of all show you how to create a podcast, or the audio part of the podcast, and then I'm going to show you how to use Google Sites to share that podcast. And so what we're going to end up with is a site similar to this. Okay, so you can see here I've created a Google site, and at the top here I've got a little introductory paragraph. I've just used some fake text to show you the design, and then my podcast is embedded on the web page underneath that. And when you press play, then the podcast would play and other people would be able to listen to it. As part of my website, I've also got some images here. You can see the images have got captions underneath them. I've got a YouTube video which is sharing some more information, and then down the bottom I've just got some text and some images as part of a normal web page. And so in order to create that, the first thing you'll need to do is actually create your podcast. Now we're going to use Audacity to do that. And so if you come across and you do a Google search for Audacity, then it will take you to a site, or it will show you a site called Audacity Team. And this is where you can actually download the program Audacity from. It's available for Windows and for Mac, so you would choose the one which is appropriate for your device. I've already got Audacity installed, so I won't go through the process of actually installing Audacity. But if you've got a Windows machine, if you download Audacity for Windows and install it, and if you've got a Mac, if you can download Audacity for Mac and install that, then you'll be able to use Audacity to create your podcast. Alright, so now I'm going to run Audacity. And when Audacity opens up, it should look very similar to this. Okay, so you'll get the little how to get help welcome message. You can just close that. And then the way to get around Audacity, you can see across this middle row here, it's telling you the devices that are currently being used, first of all for recording and for listening. Okay, so the little microphone is your recording device and the little speaker icon is your listening device. So I have multiple recording devices available to me. You can see at the moment I'm using this headset to record. However, I could also just use the built-in microphone of my laptop by choosing that one there. I'm going to stick with the USB headset as my recording device, and for the output you have the same option. So you can see I have my built-in speakers from my laptop, or I can listen to what I'm recording through my headphone. So if you're finding that you can't hear, or it's playing through the wrong device, or it's not recording at high enough quality, have a listen and just change the device that you're using to record or to listen with. Then across the top here, you've got your normal control buttons. So you've got the play button, the stop button, a pause button, and a record button. And so those are the buttons that will allow you to manage your recordings or listen to your recordings. And then the other tool that you'll most likely use is this one here, which is the selection tool. Okay, so if you're finding that you're on a different one of these tools, the cutting tool or the zoom tool, that one there is the selection tool to select parts of your recording. Now, in order to create a recording, you would simply press the record key, and if I've got I'm using my headset, I'm listening through my headset, so let's press record. Welcome to my first podcast. I hope you enjoy your time here and you learn lots from the information I'm giving you. You can see I coughed at the end. Now, this was my cough. You can see as I recorded, the words were playing, and then I coughed here, and so you don't want that left in your podcast. I also then went, oh no, I coughed, and have this little sentence at the end. So in order to edit and remove those components, you can see at the moment I told you about the selection tool here. I'm on my selection tool, and it allows me to select parts of my podcast. When I press play, you can see I've wanted to get rid of this part here, and so to get rid of that, you would simply select the parts, just like I did there, that you want to get rid of, and then on your keyboard press the delete key. So I've selected, and now I press delete, and that component goes away. If I want to continue recording, then I move my selection tool to the area where I want to start recording once again, right there. Then I can press the record key and start talking to record once again. This podcast is going to be about the joys of owning a dog. Now, you're going to conduct an interview as part of your podcast, and so you may find that you're wanting to pause throughout the recording, prepare your people for a question, and so on, and then continue recording. And so that's how you do that. And then once you've got your entire podcast, you can use the play button. Welcome to my first podcast. I hope you enjoy your time here and you learn lots from the information I'm giving you. This podcast is going to be about the joys of owning a dog. Okay, you can also see there was a little click in this section here, so I'm going to delete that little click as well, just to get rid of that little click that happened there at the start. Now, as part of your task, you're also going to insert audio from other sources. You're going to be required to insert some music and also some ads as you go along, and so you can also use Audacity to do that. If you go to the File menu and you choose to import means that you're going to get audio from another source. And so I'm going to choose to import audio, and you'll see that it's now opened up a browse window, and you can browse and find another audio file. So at the moment I've got some audio files on my X drive, so I'm going to add some boardroom applause, which is a polite little clap. So I'm going to add a clap there at the end and open it, and you can see that it actually doesn't put it in at the end, but it puts it in on its own track underneath. And so what you then need to do is simply select that polite clapping across the bottom here. If you go up to your edit menu, there's the option to cut, or you can use Control X. And so I'm going to cut it out from that location, and I'm going to come across to the end of my presentation, and I'm going to paste, which is Control V, or you can go to edit and choose paste, the clapping in at the end. And if I zoom out just a little bit, I did that with a scroll on my mouse, so I'm just holding down Control on my keyboard and then using the scroll button on my mouse to actually zoom out and see the longer part of the track. You can see I've now got my introduction, I've got what my podcast was going to be about, and then I've got the section with the polite clapping all together. Now, to save, if you go to the File menu and you choose Save Project, this will save the project as an AUP file. Now, an AUP file is an Audacity file, and that's very handy for people who have Audacity because they'll be able to see the different tracks and they'll be able to see the waveforms here. However, for anyone who doesn't have Audacity, they're not going to be able to listen to your track. So I would recommend that you, as you're working, save your project as an AUP file. You'll see you'll get a warning here saying this is not an audio file, this is the project file. And so I'm going to save my project. In fact, I'll save over the top of my old English podcast. And so that's saving the project file with the tracks. But then when I want to share it, I'm going to have to export as an MP3. So to do that, you would go to File and choose Export, and then choose Export as MP3. And so this is a file that can then be listened to by other people around the world, just anyone who has an MP3 player. So I'm going to save it now as English Podcast MP3, and I'll save that over my existing one. And you'll see that when you save it, it's asking for some metadata. Now, metadata is information about your podcast, and the MP3 players will look at this so that they can give meaningful information to the person who's using it, rather than just English podcast.mp3. This would actually have the artist name. You can see you can give it a track title, so I'm talking about dogs. You could give it an album title, which would be the title of your podcast if it was ongoing, a track number, the year that it was generated, the genre. Now, our genre is going to be vocal, and any comments that you wanted to add. So you can make that data up. Now, this isn't required, but it just helps the players, the MP3 players, to have some more information about your track. And then you simply say OK, and that's now going to create an MP3 file that you can share in your site. Once you've finished creating your podcast and you're happy with the way that it's been edited, export as an MP3, save it somewhere where you remember, and in the next video I'm going to show you how to put that into your Google Drive, and then once it's in your Google Drive, create a site that you can also put that file into so that people around the world can listen to your podcast.